two separate issues. And on the fundamental issue of whether Russia was trying to interfere in the election of 2016, that is actually not in dispute. Whether Trump was collaborating with them, that's the part that I will give you.
Yes, that's
is
my
in
point.
dispute.
And it was
So
You say that,
yeah.
don't lie about the rest of it, though. Don't tell us that Russia was that it was debunked that Russia was trying to interfere, which is exactly what you just said. So, do you want to roll that lie back, or do you want to keep going?
Roll that lie back. No, what I also would like to point out that James Clapper. No, I acknowge.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
I
Thank you,
acknowledge
because
what you're saying.
that's what I'm trying to get. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Charles, it was the intelligence community. It was the intelligence community that was trying to derail.
We're gonna be buddies by the end of.
One thing these MAGA commentators aren't going to do on CNN Newsnight, when Charles Blow is at the table, is get away with blatant lies. He is someone who comes armed with the receipts, and he will literally corner you and break down a false narrative until you're forced to concede and tell the truth. In this clip, Charles Blow gets into a highly tense exchange with a MAGA panelist who tries to push the classic Russia, Russia, Russia deflection. Blow immediately fact-checks him on the spot, completely derailing the talking point and forcing him to admit that what he said wasn't accurate. Let's watch how this interaction unfolded in full, and I will break down exactly how the narrative was dismantled right after.
Donald Trump is urging his new intelligence director, who has no national security experience, to fire away. Speaking to the Wall Street Journal, Trump says that he's encouraging Bill Pulte to slash a large number of jobs as part of a necessary shakeup in the intelligence community. Pulte's appointment is only temporary, but today, Trump suggested that his acting status might secretly be an asset. You're less scared, he said, but news of Pulte's appointment may already be causing a headache for the president. With just 1 week until a powerful surveillance law expires, early this morning, Democrats who are concerned about Pulte's appointment moved to block consideration of that bill. They were joined by 7 Republicans. It's already having an impact, and I'm not sure if this is really going to fly, and I think Trump knows it, honestly. I think he's aware. That's why he said today that he's interviewing 5 people or whatever for the job. I think he knows that this might not ever happen. By the way, the current DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, is still in her job until the end of the month.
And he knows that Bill Pulte has opposition within the Republican Party because he isn't qualified for the job by a long shot. But I think he wants him in there for a little while so he can pilfer the nation's secrets as Trump wants. Right? I mean, he's basically said that. He'll look into the election stuff. Just as Tulsi Gabbard showed up to, rifle through the ballot boxes of Fulton County, Georgia, he wants Bill Pulte to do something similar. And just as Bill Pulte did at the mortgage finance agency that he ran, he wants him to rifle through the confidential information of his political enemies to see if he can get anything on that. He'll take the stuff, give it to Trump, and go away.
I think the thing that makes me the most, elections have consequences. And when you are the president of the United States, you get to elect your senior officials, your cabinet. But in this instance, our enemies don't actually care about Democrats and Republicans. They care about destroying America. And this is this is the individual that every morning briefs the president on the security of this country. We need a qualified person. I don't like any of Donald Trump's cabinet secretaries, but that's his choice. And if they're not, like the HUD secretary is not actually putting our national security at risk. But this role, a lapse in judgment here while he's thinking about rigging the election and our enemies come after, I think at this moment, everyone as Americans need to say, Mr. President, take a beat and let's do what's best for this country.
So the reason I'm not surprised by this is Donald Trump's been talking about draining the swamp since he was elected in 2016. So I don't think that we should be surprised that he wants to fire the intelligence.
The U.S. intelligence community is the swamp of American life.
Russia. All of that came from
Russia.
Wait a second. Are you saying
Russia attacked the election? You don't believe that?
This has been debunked, Terry.
No, it is not true at all. You can laugh about it, but it still doesn't make it true. That's actually a lie. It was not debunked that Russia did not try to interfere with our election. That was never debunked. That was never. Can you just acknowledge that there has never been debunked? This was an effort
on the part of President Barack Obama to derail President Trump's
first 2 years in his
first 2 years.
That's another lie.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
I
We want to
think
stick to the
Well,
truth at
as
the table.
Trump was coming into office, have you
think
not
that
paid attention
you're-
to
I
what
think you're
he
conflating-
classified
Why would a
by
smile
Tulsi
Hold on a
Gabbard?
second, Rob. I think you're conflating two things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't actually necessarily agree with the thing that I think you're trying to say, but I'll explain what you're trying to say. The president believes that the part of the whole Russia idea that he was colluding with the Russians to meddle in the election was weaponization, right? He believes that. That's separate from saying that Russia
Yes.
interfered
Exactly.
in the 2016 election, which is a fact that was corroborated by a bipartisan Senate committee and a report that was co-authored by Marco Rubio, who is Trump's current Secretary of State. So those are two separate issues. And on the fundamental issue of whether Russia was trying to interfere in the election of 2016, that is actually not in dispute. Whether Trump was collaborating with them, that's the part that I will give you.
Yes, that's
is
my
in
point.
dispute.
And it was
So-
You say that,
Yeah.
don't lie about the rest of it, though. Don't tell us that Russia was that it was debunked that Russia was trying to interfere, which is exactly what you just said. So, do you want to roll that lie back, or do you want to keep going?
roll that lie back. No, what I also would like to point
What does
out
that
that
mean?
James Clapper. No, I acknowledge. I acknowledge.
thank
what
you.
you're
I
saying.
appreciate it.
I
Thank you,
acknowledge what
'cause
you're saying.
that's what
but
I'm trying to get.
the
That's what I'm trying to get to.
Charles, it was the intelligence
truth.
community. It was the intelligence community
Thank
that
you.
was trying to derail.
We're going to be
President
buddies by the end of the evening because you're telling the truth.
So,
And
but,
then-
but-
and then
but
Abby-
let's go back to what the DNI really is supposed to be, okay? Because the world did not begin in 2016
Right.
or in 2015 when all of this was happening. The DNI position was created after 9/11 to resolve one of the main causes of 9/11, which is the idea that the intelligence agencies were not sharing information, were not talking to each other, and we were caught flat-footed
Right.
in the most devastating terror attack of many decades. So what is the real rationale for gutting that agency today by President Trump?
Well, so first let me say, I think Pulte is a bizarre and unqualified choice. I'm glad he's not at FHFA anymore, but
Yes.
alarmed to see that he's at DNI. But I think I actually am aligned with the mission, and it's sort of the Department of Redundancy department over at DNI. And Tom Cotton has actually introduced legislation that is trying to accomplish something similar. He made a comment that at DNI you have coordinators coordinating with coordinators who are coordinating, and it's become so bloated that it's not achieving the mission that it set out to be a nimble, lean agency that was at the very top overseeing the intelligence whole, juggernaut. So I think the bloat, the fact that you have 2,000 people doing a job that probably 600 people could be doing, is actually problematic.
here's the
I
problem.
actually think that's
Tulsi
a fair
Gabbard already cut it by
point.
half. So how much more
But
they
I
gonna
also
cut?
think that you also made an important point that Tom Cotton is a member of Congress. That's their job.
Yeah.
They created the agency. They outlined the qualifications for the person who ought to run it. They can streamline it if they feel like they need to, and they should. Why not do that as opposed to Trump? Trump seems to be saying, "I want to do an end run around Congress."
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise.
But
We know that what happens is, I give credit to the Democrat administrations that have been in power, because what they do is they hire individuals for a lot of these government agencies, and then they burrow in. I mean, there's been study after study done that shows that the Democrats stick around and run these agencies even when a Republican president is in office. And I think that's what I was getting at with the frustration that Trump has with some of the political appointees who end up in these positions.
Every
I
president
think
has
We
five.
have to leave it there, unfortunately. Sorry,
Darn
guys.
it.
So look, I don't need to go deep into the Russia deflection Rob tried to make outside of the MAGA echo chamber. Everyone knows the facts. The MAGA position intentionally conflates two separate questions. First, did Russia interfere? Yes, absolutely. That is a bipartisan fact agreed upon across the board. The only actual debate is whether that interference changed the final outcome. But what I really want to focus on is a pattern I point out constantly. These commentators know exactly what they are doing. Rob knew he was pushing a false narrative, but the strategy is to just throw misinformation out there. They don't rely on facts. They just count on nobody pushing back or fact-checking them. We see this exact playbook right now with the claims coming out of California about election interference. They throw out massive accusations with zero evidence to back them up. It's the same strategy Donald Trump used in 2020. His teams went to court over 60 times, failed to produce actual proof, and were rejected every single time. This is the standard MAGA playbook. You don't need evidence, you just state an opinion as fact because you know a specific audience will absorb it without demanding proof. It makes a good faith debate almost impossible because the goal isn't reality. It's total alignment with Donald Trump. That is why Rob led with a blatant falsehood, only for Charles Blow to systematically break it down until Rob had to backtrack. It's frustrating to watch, but it shows exactly why rigorous fact-checking is vital. Let me know your thoughts on this exchange in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you don't miss the next video. I'll see you guys in the next one.